Happy
Happy
Friday,
Friday,
everybody.
everybody.
Morning.
Good morning, Rob. Happy Friday.
Good
Hey.
morning, Rob.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning,
So
everybody.
I don't know, maybe I'm going to mute everybody. I'm hearing a bit of an echo, and then I'll come right back. All right. So today is inspired by a concept of turning, not only leads, but turning home buyers into homeowners. And I think that there's a distinction that that we need to recognize, and it's not about, the old cliche, it's not about them, it's usually about us. Okay. And we all have a abundance of buyers from the past 3 or 4 years. Many of them have been outbid and might even be discouraged from entering into the marketplace. And I think our traditional strategy for working with home buyers or leads or whatever you want to call them, which is really people who we can change their life, is in need of a revamp. Okay. It's kind of like the 3-step listing process, right? Put the sign in the ground, put it on the MLS, and pray for a good result. Not working anymore, right? So our buyer process needs to be, in my opinion, completely revamped. And it starts with, hey, has anyone taken the time to sit down with you and explain to you what's necessary to be a successful buyer in today's market? Okay, it's not strictly, pre-qualifying and doing things of that nature. It's taking it to that next level. It's looking at, things like, Angie Virostock had shared some ideas with me that opened my eyes after many, many years in the business, which is, asking questions that take it a little bit deeper than I want a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a fenced yard for my dog. Like that's basic criteria, but I think table stakes now for buyers, it has been raised. Okay, because the old strategy is not going to get people into a house when there's a tremendous shortage. And it's not all about price and interest rates. It's about education. It's about commitment. It's about letting them make the decision with full information. So if any of you were at the session I had yesterday up in Closter, I think that was excellent session. I think that, I always learn when I'm surrounded by, your peers, and, things that we talked about yesterday were, historic home prices. We talked a little bit about, expectations of home ownership. There's not enough hours in the day for me to prep on how to dump the information that I want to be at our fingertips when we're talking with our clients. And I'm just going to take a second here and just to go through a few basic things and show you where they are. In the email that we all got, let me just pull this up. All right, give me a second. I'll find where the email is, and then I'll show you. But basically, it gives you links to some documents that I put together. One of them is this one, turning buyers into homeowners. And I think the critical thing that we need to be going over and over and over again is anyone taking the time to sit you down and walk you through what it really takes to successfully buy a home in today's market, right? That's the table stakes here. Here are some things that I put together to help us with our conversation. One of those, how many buyers do you think are a little bit apprehensive, thinking that rates may fall? Do you feel that that's a legitimate concern for a percentage, a majority of buyers at this point? Anybody?
Yes, I feel that it is. This is
So-
Lisa.
So Lisa, you think people are like, hey, things have gone up so much, maybe I should wait and see if prices fall?
Yes, I feel like that's what they're thinking.
And if I asked you, Lisa, hey, Lisa, what do you think about prices? Are they going to fall, or is it safe to buy?
I think they're going up because everybody, especially here in Florida, moving here, and they're only going up. So marry the house and date the rate. If the interest rate goes down, you can always refinance.
Yeah, but don't you think, Lisa, that with all that's going on with insurance, prices are going to, like, I'm role playing a buyer. So you think
Yes.
that prices might drop with all the insurance problems that are going on, and they went up so much, like, maybe they'll drop and I'll buy it then.
Well, then if they drop, there'll be more competition, and then more competition could drive the prices up again.
So here's the lifesaver I'm going to offer to everybody on this call is, hey, you know what? Nobody's for sure about what prices are going to do, but over the past 6 decades, home prices have gone up a minimum of 4% to a little bit over 6% over the entire decade. And I'm not smart enough to know for sure what prices are going to do, but I hope you don't mind if I share this information with you. Here's some of the experts. You've heard of Goldman Sachs and Fannie Mae, and have you heard of Zillow, Lisa? Of course, right?
Yes, yes.
So here's what everybody is predicting for 2024, that housing prices nationally will go up 2.9%, virtually 3%. And if we're buying a place for $800,000, it's probably another $30,000 to $50,000 we'll have to pay if we wait. And here's another interesting slide. Those same experts, here's what they're projecting for the next 5 years. I don't know if that's helpful to you, but I don't think many of our competition is sharing this with their consumers, right? So I'm putting this information onto our, it's going onto the hub. It's in the sheet that I sent out. There's a link in there. And here's another piece, which is as a home buyer, if we buy now, and this is on a $400,000 house, which most of us are, trading in significantly higher areas, in 5 years, that $400,000 purchaser will have almost $84,000 in equity, not to mention all the other benefits of home ownership from appreciation alone. Okay. So these are things that, in my opinion, are things that we need to start discussing more than just bedrooms, bathrooms, and what they qualify for. Here's a reason why I think, housing forecasts are likely to be accurate, which is there's a couple of charts I put here. The population, there's 82.2 million millennials that are in the home buying and housing formation stage that are going to be, that are actively in the market or coming into the market. And, it looks like you have, 4 to 5 million in every single year. So that means that there's going to be, even if you figure there's 2 millennials to a household, that's going to be north of 40 million home buyers in a market where we're doing 4 to 6 million sales. So I think that's a supply and demand issue that we should educate our consumers on, so that they know that, we're not likely to see what happened in 2008 or 9. And I'm trying to find a chart that I could put in here for us where it shows, I might actually have it, shows population growth versus housing and how we overbuilt in the 2005 to 2008 range. So we basically had a surplus of housing. Now we have a shortage of housing. And in my opinion, waiting's not a good strategy, right? And if somebody wants to buy a house, we need to discuss with them, what the steps are to be successful in becoming a homeowner. Okay. Anybody have any comments on I think it's a big shift from our normal buyer conversation. I see Andrew there. What do you think? Andrew Velez.
I think the buyers are going to start getting back into the market again. I mean, I think you're going to see much stronger people that are in there. Most of the stuff that I've seen it's a mix between FHA and conventional, but I think we're in a good upswing a little bit down here. So
right? I mean, you, were you in the market, Andrew, back in the days when it was more common for buyers to come in and have a consultation with you before the process began?
Oh yeah, I
Or,
mean, I used to have people come in to our office and spend an hour and do a search in a conference room. It was a I mean, this was before COVID. It was a very different experience. I think now, I mean, it's definitely changed quite a bit.
I mean, I think we're in the information age, and I think buyers are still playing. They're still practicing off the old playbook, and now we can talk to them about compound appreciation, right? Has anybody ever used that phrase in a buyer meeting? Does anybody know what that means? We all know what compound interest is, right, Andrea? That doesn't sound good, does it?
No, it does. I think sometimes, I mean, we could complicate things a little bit. I think those conversations are, one to one, depending on the type of person that you're dealing with. Um, I use a graphic. I use some of the graphics that are provided to us from the Florida Realtors that show how a transaction work and how these things work for a buyer, and those are very successful for me.
Right. So if a buyer understood, at the forecasted, 4 to 5% property appreciation, if they bought a house for, let's just take a round number of $500,000, they put down 20% or $100,000, that in 5 years, their equity will be more than double. I don't think we explain that to buyers. I think we maybe assume that they know it, or maybe we just don't have the tools and resources to share that with them. But if you spent, 5 years, 10 years saving up for your down payment on your house, you now have 100 grand, you put it down, you buy a $500,000 house with 4.5% appreciation compounding annually over 5 years, you're anticipated to have $100,000 of appreciation in your home, in addition to the 100,000 that you put down, plus a small amount of amortization of paying the loan balance off. Sounds pretty good to me. I'm gonna bet my last dollar that most buyers don't understand that when they're buying. I mean, they know that homes are expected to appreciate, but they can't quantify it. So if we give you the tools to quantify that, I believe that people will be able to take more decisive action in their own interest. Not that I'm going to try to convince anybody to do something that's not in their best interest, but if we educate them, and if we wait 2 years, that puts them 2 years further down the process. Okay, so that means that first year that they're in their house would have been the third year, and it would have been probably 50% or 30% more appreciation, because they've already, are working off of an increased base. I think this is important. I think sharing numbers with buyers is very important. On the attachment I sent to you, I'm going to share with you some stuff that might make your head spin a little bit, but this is good stuff. Housing price index. It's all right there for you. Shows you both New Jersey, Florida, and Virginia housing prices over 48 years. And it shows you that the average and the mean, the average was 5.5%, and the mean was 5.26%. And even if you take out the last few pandemic years where the home price appreciation has gone above 10%, you're still at 5.06 and 4.83 over a 48-year period. Okay, and I've done it for Florida and Virginia. You have all this data. Now, if we're not sharing this with our home buyers, honestly, I think we're doing a disservice. Okay, and I'm not saying, if you ask 100 real estate professionals, is it a good time to buy? Almost everybody's going to say yes, but do they have the information to back it up? right? And do you think sometimes they come across as being self-serving, used car like salespeople? You know, Rob Durso, what do you think? Think you know, is it a good time to buy? I put him on the spot. I like to do that. Oh, he must be on a call. So
There's buyers out there buying. I mean, I'm looking in my farm area every day, look at the hot sheets every day, and there's a lot of sales out there. So that tells me buyers are not afraid. They're out there buying. There's a lot of need out there. So I think
but the question I have for you, Ron, and everybody on this call is how many people do we have in our database, okay, under our fingertips that we showed a house to over the past 4 years that are still not a homeowner, that are still not a homeowner? And to be honest with you, I don't care about everybody else. I care about everybody that's made a connection with one of us and make sure that we arm them with the tools and resources to make the right decision and answer the questions that the consumers have. And, you know, if somebody says, Ron, what do you think prices are going to do?
I think they're on a trend upwards.
You know, you know, my wife and I were concerned that they've gone up too much, they might fall.
That's a lot. Yeah, we hear that every once in a while. Well, nobody has a crystal ball.
Ron, how about if how about if we change that, and I appreciate you volunteering, how about if we change that narrative and we said, hey, Ron, you know what? I'm glad you asked me that question. I hope you don't mind if I share with you some forecasts from some of the smartest people in the industry. You heard of Goldman Sachs, you heard of Zillow, right? I'm going to share with you what their forecasts are. They have a lot more data points than I do. And you pull up this chart.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Right? Here's the historical numbers, right? And then here's the charts. Hey, Goldman Sachs, Fannie Mae, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the home price survey, and Zillow, NAR, and Freddie Mac. Every single one of them is expecting home price appreciation. And here's what it would look like. And you can just change the number based upon what price point they're in. They're an $800,000 price point. You just double these numbers. If you buy now in 5 years, you'd have $167,000 of equity based upon compound appreciation. And
Rob, I got a question.
go ahead.
Does the rule of 72 apply to compound appreciation?
Is this a setup?
Say what?
That sounds like a setup because that's in my presentation here, Jeff. It's like were you reading the notes or are you just asking me that question?
No, I've used it in the past
Yeah,
for just interest rate increases or not interest increases on investments and stuff.
So that is absolutely correct. If you take you take 72, you divide it by 5%. What does that give you, Jeff? I'll do the math here. 72 divided by 5% means that your house will double in 14.4 years. So if you buy a house for 800,000, it's going to be worth 1.6 in 14.4 years with the historical 5% appreciation. Do you think most buyers are aware of that? Do most buyers even know what the rule of 72 is?
No.
I bet there's a lot of us on this call that don't know the rule of 72. Right? And if that goes up to 7%, your house will double in 10 years. If we share that with our buyers, do you think that they're going to be more likely to stick with us and sign a buyer agency agreement?
It certainly wouldn't hurt.
Certainly wouldn't hurt. And you think they'd feel more comfortable and a little bit less anxiety when they make their purchase, right?
Of course.
And if we go back to this chart here, right? And I love charts, and I love done for you charts is the only thing better than charts. So a done for you chart says that so be about $20,000 worth of appreciation between year 4 and 5. So that means like if you wait a year to buy, that means that you've given up, that 5th year of appreciation. So you've already lost, $20,000 that's going to be compounding upon itself, right? Because it looks like here in year number 5.5, that house is going to be worth 500,000, and that 5% of 500,000 is going to be 25,000 instead of $15,000 to $20,000 appreciation. All right, this stuff is not being shared with consumers today, and perhaps this is even enlightening for us being in the industry. There's even a chart. I'm going to find it from my conversation yesterday, which talked about, look at this chart. Jeff, did you know that, families with a household income between $91,000 and $150,000 that are renters on average have a net worth of $57,000. And when they become homeowners, their net worth is an average of $375,000. So if somebody's in that income range, that has significance to them, in my opinion, right? And if you're making over $250,000, then it's a $2.1 million difference. And if you're planning on at some point, as a household income being over 250, then that can be a $2 million difference in your destiny, your financial future. Have I rendered everybody speechless or confused you?
No, it's good. It's good. Well, we have those charts.
So Robert Carver, what do you think? Did that render them speechless or confuse them?
A little bit of both.
Yeah,
I think this information is probably so much more pertinent to first-time home buyers than it is to people that have buying a second home or have,
So Jeff, did you know
bought a couple homes in the past.
So Jeff, did you know all this information? I know you knew the rule of 72. I'm giving you credit for that. But did you know all the rest of the stuff I've been sharing?
That last table is very, very good. I didn't realize there was such a significant difference between the net worth of someone who owning a home as opposed to renting
By income, right? So,
Right.
so Jeff, Jeff, I'm calling you an expert. Hold on, Jeff, I'm calling you an expert. And I assume that you own your own home, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you own your home and you're an expert in the business, and there's some information that you were not aware of. So I'm going to push back a little bit and say that this is equally as relevant for a trade-up buyer, and maybe even more relevant for a trade-up buyer because they think they know more about what's going on, and it's our job to educate them and help them make that right decision. So I'm putting the stake in the ground and saying that it's not just for a first-time home buyer.
I agree.
So, this stuff here is not going to be learned in one session here today. On the 11th and the 13th in Florida, you should have invites out, or they should be going out today for some training sessions that I'm going to be doing about the home buyer and seller conversation, but mostly buyers, because that's a lot of what's changing with this, and giving you the tools and resources to add more value. Okay. Yesterday I spent probably 2.5 hours up in our Closter office. We had a great turnout. Thank you everybody for coming. And I think it was just really enlightening at the engagement and the way that the questions that they had, pushed me to help make this better for us to share with our consumers. And, buying a house, you change somebody's life. I told the story yesterday about an experience that I watched firsthand where Avo from Closter, I believe it was his listing, and Shantae in Westfield sold this house. And it was emotional. It was cute. They rang the bell. They congratulations, right? Almost had to tell them, okay, now you can leave, right? You're now the owner, right? So Shantae gives them the key, and went through their hand, like they couldn't believe it was really theirs. That was like one of the things that I probably will not forget for many, many years. And then after they took the pictures, they celebrated in our office, they left, and then they came back to the front door. I saw them coming back to the door. I'm like, can I help you? Like, yeah, is Shantae still there? I call her down. Shantae, your clients want to meet you. And they go, are we able to go to the house? Are we able to go to our property? Because like they couldn't believe that it was real.
They had to pinch
And
themselves, huh?
but you, you know how Jeff, like you're like, oh, you can't go there until after you close, right? And we have to, I have to escort you through the walkthrough, right? And this first time couple, they were just so cute that they're like, can I go there now, right? And it's, yeah, it's yours. We take that for granted because we've done it so many times, and we shouldn't. And I think we also take for granted that people know more than they do, maybe because they don't ask questions, because they don't know what they don't know, right? They think they know everything with the internet, but we have an obligation and a duty to change the process, okay, and to help more people become successful in the home buying process. Okay, it's converting a home buyer into a homeowner, right? Because you can be a home buyer for quite a while, but it takes something special to turn that switch and become a homeowner. And sometimes that something is, still competitive. You have to bid over ask price. Maybe that's not comfortable. Maybe they don't know that that's the norm, right? Maybe we need to educate them. We need to not force them to do things that they don't want to do, but give them the information so that they can make that right choice. Because as soon as that 5-year clock starts where you're going to double your down payment in 5 years just from being a homeowner, people have the right, in my opinion, to understand and know that. They have the right to know about the rule of 72, okay? And if you just say, hey, Mark, has anybody explained the rule of 72 to you? Most people already know. What is that? Jeff, I give you a big pat on the back there, but I think that's from your commercial real estate experience. But people can have a lot of fun with that, figuring out, how much their home will go up. And you know what happens in 30 years? Okay. So if the rule of 72 means that it doubles every, let's just round it up to 15 years, right? Your house doubles every 15 years. If I pay 500,000 for my house today, what's my house going to be worth in 30 years when my mortgage is paid off? When I need a volunteer.
2 million.
Anybody agree with that? That's pretty amazing, right? So it doubles, but then it doubles off the double, right, Jeff?
Correct.
So it becomes quadrupled. That's pretty damn amazing in my opinion, okay? And there's just so many benefits to home ownership. It's like a secret society. You get to write off the interest. You get to, write off the taxes. As a married couple, you get to have $500,000 of tax-free gain on your house. Like what else in our society do you have the opportunity to earn money and not pay taxes on it? Let me clarify that. Legally earn money and not pay taxes on it. Does anybody know anything that you can do it? Maybe a municipal bond that earns a really low rate. But is there anything else where you don't have to pay taxes on a profit legally? No, I don't think so. Anybody have any other thoughts on, because I have more information here, any other thoughts on what we might be missing when we talk to our clients about, the prospect of buying a home? What benefits might they miss?
Hey, Rob,
Yes, Dan?
I rely heavily on the market reports we get every month. For example, in Palm Beach County and many of the other counties here in Southeast Florida, April 24 over April 23, our townhome and condo inventory is up 81.3%. So we are now into a deep buyer's market, well above the 5.9 months of inventory. Haven't seen that in a few years.
Well, what does that mean to buyers, though?
It's a buyer's market. You have to
What does
explain
that-
it to them,
No, but what does that mean? Does that mean that I can bid 10% less?
maybe.
Well, it also tells me that buyer beware. Condos are there's got to be trouble in the condo market, which we know there is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that inventory amount isn't, I guess, data wise, very valuable to a buyer who wants to say, hey, I'm going to buy a house, right?
I believe the numbers are relative back to 2019 right now of what the market was. But I do believe that we're going to see our condo inventory growing, and we probably 6 months to a year from now could be almost at a year supply. The association fees and insurance have just really hurt the industry. And unfortunately, the people who did buy condos in the last 3 years don't want to lower the price, the ones that need to sell. So we haven't seen the price drops relative to the increases in the monthly fees. So I
And the month,
unfortunately
and the
think it's gonna be
assessments,
worse.
and the assessments too, Scott,
Right,
the
right.
individual assessments. Yep.
So, but that's part of the education process. That I think a lot of our peers are not taking the time to sit them down and explain to them what all this means, right? Now, if you're buying it as an investment and there's inventory building up, maybe it makes sense to wait. If you're buying it to live in and you're paying rent, I think the conversation's a bit different, right? I mean, if the prices don't go up for the first year, maybe they go down 1% or 2%. Maybe they go up 1% or 2%. Maybe, I go to you, Dan, and say, hey, Dan, you remember a year and a half ago we were looking, we couldn't even find a condo because they were flying off the shelf. Now is probably the time to, take advantage of the selection that we have. Because if interest rates fall or the insurance issue gets resolved, what do you think is going to happen to prices and inventory?
Hey, Rob,
I'm down.
Yep.
not to cut you off, this is Lisa Grande. If you have anybody looking in South Jersey, we still get multiple offers over here.
Okay, good to know.
So
And-
if anybody has any clients looking in like the Cherry Hill area, reach out to me. We got
Right.
plenty of condos here. There's still multiple offers.
Okay, very, very good. So, and that's the other thing is, we're identifying here that real estate is not only geographically unique, right?
Yeah.
But it's also product specific unique because condominiums are facing a overlay of issues, right? They have the insurance. Now we have excess supply. There might have been more like rental properties in the condo inventory, right? People who were renting them out and they might have lost their appetite to do that. I understand that the demand for Airbnbs and short-term rentals has been softening a bit. Is anybody seeing that in our Florida market?
Yes.
So all these things might mean that maybe the condo market is seeing a different reality than the single family market. Are you seeing the same challenges for single families, Scott, or is that still pretty robust if it's priced right and positioned well?
Yeah, single families, if they're priced right, we're actually seeing them still sell in the first week. The ones that are in the better school districts, especially, of course, location. Yeah.
So Scott, how is the school system in Florida?
It depends on where you are. Of course, there's stats that show them sometimes better than they really are, but I think all in all, we have a pretty decent school system. And then there's different cities that have better than others. Down here, we're having a big surge in charter schools, and the charter schools get higher scores than the public schools. So now just about every 3 counties, let's say, has a charter school system in it. And the charter schools, matter of fact, we were at the mayor's breakfast yesterday, and I know the one in Pembroke Pines has a waiting list. I think it had like 3,000 student slots, and there were 6,000 people trying to apply.
All right. I think, I don't think Florida is generally known as the education state, right?
Correct. No.
And did you know that that you were ranked number 1 in U.S. News and World Reports for education?
I did not. I don't believe it, but that's nice.
Right, but if somebody says, I don't want to move here full time, well, you know, there's some data showing that the schools are perhaps better than somebody who thinks they're not worth anything, right? And then here's a little piece from a celebrity, right? Putting this in the information I'm sharing with you because they might not listen to us. Oh, but Shark Tank, Barbara, of course, right? I think I even shared this clip on one of our prior mastermind meetings. But waiting for a home for most people is not the best decision to do.
No, waiting is not the best decision. Our single family homes are definitely going up in value, and the taxes are not going down either. So it's better to get in and lock the Florida homestead, which helps protect your taxes from going up even higher.
Yep. So let's get close with our lenders. Let's choreograph what that process looks like to make sure that everybody's doing their part in the process. Let's educate our home buyers into homeowners, because that's really where the success is. That's where we get paid, but we only get paid because we're helping people, right? We don't get paid because we can deceive them into wanting to buy a house when they don't. Okay.
Rob, part of that why wait conversation, if we go back to where you started this Zoom call this morning, when you were talking about the number of millennials who are coming into the marketplace over the next several years, if you're going to wait to buy, then you're going to have to anticipate the fact that there's going to be a lot more competition that you're going to have to deal with as well from these newer millennials who will be joining the marketplace.
Right. There's another chart I have which shows the interest rates and the buyer demand. And when interest rates tip below 6% or hit the 6% range, buyer demand becomes more resilient, and it becomes heavy demand when it gets below 6%. I mean, things would go crazy if it went below 6% now. And I think it's our job to explain that to these buyers that are sitting on the sideline. If it takes sharing with them that in Davie, Florida, if you want to buy the right house that comes on the market, which is typically selling in the first 7 to 15 days, I'd want to know what premium has been paid recently. If most people are paying a 7 to 9% premium on buying a house in Davie that's in a desirable condition and location, then when I'm looking to buy a house for $700,000, I'm figuring I'm going to pay $50,000 to $70,000 above the ask price to be the successful new homeowner of that property, right? And if we're not sharing this information and setting the expectation, I think all we are is, as an industry, we're door openers. Okay. So there's just so much more that we can deliver. And, this NAR settlement that everybody's all in arms about is truly a gift, right? Because it's now going to give us an opportunity to say, hey, Rob Garber, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and go through what it takes to be a successful home buyer in today's market? Like, does that sound very salesy to you?
No, it doesn't sound salesy.
And I said, Robert, how long have you been looking? Oh, since 21. And, look at, I just want to take the time to educate you so that you can make the right decision for you and your family, right? That to me, that has integrity. If we take the 40 people that are in our didn't get a house list and we have a conversation like this, we have the resources. We're going to have a customizable, like, buyer. I hate to use the term presentation, but maybe it's like an electronic flip chart or something that has more integrity than walking you through a PowerPoint.
A buyer's guide.
A buyer's guide. Haven't found one that I love yet, Colleen. So we're gonna put our own personality on it. But there are, I don't know, what do we have, 650, 700 agents. Say every agent probably has 40 people that they've spoken to that didn't buy. I don't know,
At
you know,
least.
Glenn, how many people do you think your team has that they spoke to, showed one house to, met at an open house and have their phone number that hasn't bought at this point? Like per agent, what would you guess?
Well, I mean, flagged as active buyers, meaning that we've shown them 436.
That's all the agents?
Yeah.
And then there's probably some people from open houses that, they called once and didn't follow up that still haven't bought. Would you think that's reasonable?
Not from the open house piece, but other methods, yes, like social media and such.
Yeah, and how many active buyer agents do you have now?
Taking myself out 7.
So 7 over 4 something?
Yep,
So that's what, like 60-ish a person?
it is.
So if every one of your buyer's agents said, hey, has anyone taken the time to sit down with you and share what it takes to be successful in the current environment, I think it would move the needle a lot, Glenn, and I think you'd change a lot of lives in the process, because I don't think anybody's doing it. I really don't think anybody's doing it.
Yeah, and Rob, there's 3 things that I thought of when we were going through this today. So I use 2 questions that absolutely, 1, control the conversation, and 2, pivot the mindset of the buyer. So, and I don't like to not have control of the conversation. So 1 is, I asked the question, what would need to happen for you to buy a house? Like what would need, so they're going to tell me all of the reasons why, right? And then the next thing I do is I turn it completely around and take control of the conversation and say, would you be offended if I proved you wrong? Would you be offended if I told you why that's not correct? Would you be offended? I start off with the would you be offended? And immediately they fell into the trap of, wow, I'm vulnerable. He knows some more than I do. And I've used that, repeatedly. And it takes down the conversation to a point where they're willing to listen, opposed to their social media that told them it's a terrible time to buy.
Right. I mean, the media is always telling you it's a terrible time to buy, right?
Yep.
So, and Glenn, for those of you who are on the call who don't know Glenn, it's not a sales trick. I promise you, it's not a sales trick. It's a way to bring down the barrier that people put up before they can have a candid conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Because people come, it's like a home seller. My house is worth $1 million. Well, it's really worth $875. We need to figure out, how do we get to that point, right? How do we bring it together without offending them?
Yeah.
And I think you've masterfully demonstrated a way to, bring their guard down so that you can have a real conversation about what it takes to move the process to that next level.
Yeah, and pattern interrupts are critical to that, but also asking for permission, right? I'm not just pontificating to them. I'm asking them for permission. Would you be offended if? And if they say, yes, I'd be offended, then I'm not going to go down that path, right? but it opens a door that's very different. And Rob, one thing I'll point, I don't know if anyone's listened to 3 days ago, Tom Ferry had a podcast that went out. That is hands down probably the best podcast I've ever heard in real estate, period. And it's with the KCM guys, which you have a lot of their slides here. I love KCM, not an Inman fan at all. But with regard to it, it covers the conversations, affordability conversations, mortgage rate conversations. The podcast is absolute solid gold. If you haven't listened to it, you need to, without a doubt.
I'll put a link to it here, Glenn, on the sheet I'm putting out. And I don't want everybody to be overwhelmed with information, but I really do want to just change the whole narrative of what a buyer appointment looks like, right? I want to spin it on its head, because most buyer appointments are saying, hey, Glenn, what's your wish list? If you had to sacrifice on one thing, like that's what your grandmother did. And I think now we're better than that. Okay. I think now we need to take it that level deeper. And I'll give a shout out to Angie Verstock, who, said, hey, Glenn, I know that you need a 4-bedroom, you want to be in this school district, but, why is that important to you? And you might say, hey, it's, because I have 2 kids that will be going to middle school. Great. And why is that important? Because I like the schools there. Why is that important to you, that they get into that school so that they get into a good college? So if we find a house that gets in the right school district, your kids get into the good college, why is that important to you? Because then they'll be independent and be able to buy a house on their own. I feel like I did a good job as a parent. Like, going a couple of levels deeper, really does show that you care, right? And I think a lot of us would be uncomfortable asking those questions. And for me, the first time I was like, oh my goodness, like, why would I ask? Like, that's really getting into a very uncomfortable spot. But it really isn't, and maybe one day I can convince Angie to share with you her prowess in using that simple technique to help probably hundreds, if not more than hundreds, of buyers in her successful career, buy homes. But the traditional buyer appointment, buyer consultation, then meeting them at a house and showing them through the house, that's dead now, in my opinion. We need a new process. And I use the term process because it can't be random. Okay. It has to be, hey, is anyone taking the time to sit you down and share with you what it takes to be a successful buyer in this environment? All right. And I'm gonna ask you, Glenn, if you know if your team does this, but do they share with the buyers like what the bid to ask was on the last 3 sales in the market that they're looking at is? Or you hope they ask and you're not sure?
They know the percentages for sure. It's so funny you said that. I was typing up an email to show that for a client. So yes, I think they do it. It's all in different methods, but yes.
But I mean, that's so, I mean, to me, that takes the mystery out of it, right? Because they don't, you don't want to go to a car dealer, right, and pay retail price if everybody else is paying, 10% below MSRP. But if there's a shortage in cars and everybody's paying 6% above, if there was a resource where you can see that, hey, all the new electric Mustangs are selling for 6.5% above the MSRP, and then you go to buy one, at least you have an expectation of where the rest of the market is, right? And I would feel more comfortable in that circumstance. And if my real estate professional is giving me that information, that's added value. Okay, that's things that others aren't. And then you overlay that with talking to them about what does it look like in 5 years. You talk about the rule of 72, and Jeff, the rule of 72, what you brought to me is, have them calculate it on their phone and maybe even write it down so that they've learned something from you and that you've added permanent value, right? I mean, I think that's part of the process. And then the chart showing, your net worth by homeowner by income range. Like that's something I found. I don't know if it was on KCM or not. I think it was on KCM, Glenn. But to me, like that's relevant, right? If you're in this income range and you're a renter versus a homeowner, here's how much you're on average going to be increased net worth compared to your peers. Okay, it's all part of the package. It's redefining everything we've known in the business in a positive way. All right. Don't ever just sit them down and say, hey, Glenn, how many bedrooms and baths? And, oh, would you also go to Parsippany and Whippany as well? Right. That's the old school. The new school is, educating them, talking about the process, sharing with them what others have gone through. And, social proof for this is how many people had to, make 2 or 3 bids, bid above or significantly above asking price. And then when you go to do a pop buy to them 2 years later, like, oh my God, Glenn, I can't tell you how much we love this house, right? The kids love their neighbors. This is the best thing we ever did. That to me is the motivation to improve our skills and to have better conversations with our home buyers who can change their identity into homeowners one way, and that's through us, right? Because the numbers aren't good for them. If there's 4 million in every 12-month period of the millennials, and 85% of them want to buy a house, and the generation is 72 million, and only about 12% of them currently own a house, I don't think it's going to get easier anytime soon. I think the numbers are overwhelming that the competition is here for a while. And if you want to be a home buyer, you need a strategy. And if rates drop, and you're in your new home, you win, right? And there's only 2 recessions where home prices have declined. One was in the 7 to 10 period, and it was only a few percentage points. Now, there were some fringe examples where people lost a lot of money because they were in speculative markets, but very minor. And there's only one other time since they've been keeping track of it in that 48-year period where home prices had declined even through a recession. In 4 of the last 6 recessions, home prices increased. And our clients need to hear that from us, or they're going to hear it from somebody else, or they're going to be extended renters, which, you know, doesn't make me feel proud of our industry if our people who are in our ecosystem that we have the ability to contact, that we don't give them the message. We don't share with them, you know, all the data points that help them make the right decision for themselves and their family. So I'm gonna take some questions. I see a lot of stunned faces. Anybody have any questions, thoughts?
I would just like to say the other advantage to home ownership is the equity that you build in your property and what you can do with that equity. If you want to go and make an investment in the future, you have that equity in the property that you purchased to go ahead and use towards that. Or your kids are going to college, which is very, very expensive, and you need to draw on that. It's like forced savings, literally money in the bank.
So I use this example, Colleen, when we had one of our meetings. I think it was in our West Delray office, and you know, I said, you know, we have a duty to educate our clients as to everything about real estate. And part of that would also be, hey, you know, Colleen, so glad that you're in your house. You know, I wanted to do a financial, real estate financial review with you, just like a stock financial advisor would do, right? Because you have the ability, Colleen, to take some of that equity out of your house and buy an investment property for each one of your kids. And then in 15 years, that's going to double, right, in value. So if we pay 500,000 for it, we put 10% down or 20% down, we buy that investment. You know, I do think there's some investment loans available with even 20% down. So we put 100,000 down on a $500,000 property. Maybe we can get it where on a 15-year mortgage, we pay it off with that 100,000 down. Then in 15 years, that $500,000 home is worth $1 million. It has no debt on it for putting up 100 today. Maybe it's not possible for you, Colleen, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that option existed and you had the opportunity to make the decision. Because I have come across, you know, more than several handfuls of agents and clients that have done that. And with the way the real estate market has behaved, not only have those children been able to graduate debt-free from college, but there was change for them to buy their first house right out of college, which to me is amazing. So we talk about, why is homeownership important to you? Well, I want my kids to go to a good school. I want them to go to college. I want that, and I want to feel like I did a good job as a parent. Well, don't you just take that to a next degree if you do something like that? And maybe you can even put it into a tax deferred plan, like a college plan. I'm not a financial expert, but maybe you could put it into a vehicle where, you know, you can defer taxes on it for education. But anyway, these are all things that I think we need to think about differently if we're going to put ourselves out as, you know, I am your real estate professional, right? I want to be able to address all of those things. And if buying and selling investment properties or multifamily homes isn't your thing, you know, look to your left, look to your right. We're on Hollywood Squares, look up and down, find somebody in our sphere here that can do that for you, and it's going to respect that it's your client, because I think they know they need to be given those opportunities. Okay, imagine, you know, Andrew, you're too busy to bother talking to people about that, and Colleen, tells every one of her clients about that. They meet at the town festival in September, and they start talking and like, oh my God, my twins, they just graduated debt free and they're buying their first house. And your client says, how did they do that? Oh, my agent told me about buying an investment property for each of them when they were 2 years old, and now it's changed their life. Be like, I wish my agent Andrew told me about that. Think about how that would make you feel, right? And I'm doing that intentionally to strike a nerve, because it's not just about you. It's about, I'm going to use the term, your fiduciary duty to be all things real estate, right? And there was, I think it was Jared James, who at our meeting here in New Jersey said that I can't stand the term past client. I can't stand it, he said, because we really don't have past clients. We have clients, right? A financial advisor, when they make the deposit, doesn't call you a past client. They're actively managing your money. You're their client. They should be our client.
We don't have
Okay.
past clients, we have inactive clients.
Well, if you keep calling them, they're not inactive either, Vina, right? You're always giving them opportunities, right?
True.
So maybe they're not transacting clients, but we're in communication with them, or we should be. And Vina, have you ever heard of a scenario where you might have told somebody, hey, I'm so thrilled I sold the Smiths, 2 condos that they bought for their daughter, so when they graduate, they'll be able to pay for their school. And you say, yeah, I'm not in a position to do that, but you know what? I'm going to mention it to my neighbor, right? Because they're so appreciative of what you did. Like, that stuff happens all the time, but it doesn't happen if you don't communicate it.
Yeah.
So, look, I hope that I hope I changed your world on what a buyer appointment looks like. I hope I changed it from bedrooms and baths to, changing lives.
No, thank you. Marsha, I have to
All
ask you a
right.
question.
Well, everybody, we're 5 minutes over. I want to wish you all a happy weekend, and I'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye.